The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum is a classic 1900 children's novel. It has been adapted for screen, both film and television, numerous times. The earliest existing film version is a silent version from 1910, and there have been versions made in almost every decade since. But which is the most faithful to the original text? I've watched 9 film versions of the original novel and score them in terms of characters, elements, and plot points for faithfulness to the text. A document with the elements in each category can be found in a link in the description for this video. This list only includes adaptations of the original Baum book. I have not considered versions based on the sequels, such as Return to Oz, reimaginings that are not based on the novel, such as Tin Man from the Sci-Fi Channel, sequels to the original film with no basis in the book, or include any individual episodes of TV shows or cartoons that included the characters or general situation. The versions I watched include the 1910 silent version starring Bebe Daniels as Dorothy, a 1925 silent version starring Dorothy Dwan, and including a young Oliver Hardy, a 1933 animated version that had no voice actor for Dorothy, the classic 1939 musical starring Judy Garland, a 1964 television version starring Marcia Rod that was not actually broadcast, the 1978 musical version starring Diana Ross, a 1982 Japanese animated version dubbed by Eileen Quinn, a 1986 Japanese animated TV show, edited to be a movie, dubbed by Morgan Hallett, and the 2005 Muppet version starring Ashanti. For characters, a point is awarded if the character appears. Since names are sometimes changed in versions, a character gets a point if they appear and it's supposed to be the one in the book. If there is a particularly interesting part of the character's description that should be included in a portrayal, I include that as a bonus point, such as Glinda having red hair. There are 38 possible character points. For elements, points are awarded if an element is present, an initial Kansas setting, for example. Partial points can be given, for example, if the wishes of brain, heart, and courage are given, but in different forms. Bonus points are given for an element if a detail is included, such as the shoes left behind by the Witch of the East being silver. There are 45 possible element points. For plot points, points are given if the plot point happens, sometimes only when it's supposed to happen, such as the order in which Dorothy meets the companions. Bonus points are given if a detail is present in the plot point, such as Toto hiding under a bed rather than anywhere else during the cyclone. There are 36 possible plot points. There are 119 possible points. Other bonus points may be given for anything not in the 3 main categories that shows an attention to detail to the book. Departures or creative licenses are not counted against any version. I'm not concerned with what's different from the book, but what is the same. Departures will be mentioned if it seems like it hurts a score, such as if a new scene takes time away from a book scene that could have been included. This is not a list of my favorites or which I think is best, as I'll leave that up to you to decide, but which contains the most elements from the book. Comment below about which version you think is the most faithful, and then which is your favorite. Links to online videos of some of the versions not readily available on home video can be found in the description below. Characters. Our first character is of course Dorothy, and as the main character she appears in all 9 versions. Uncle Henry appears in all but 2, the 1933 and 1964 versions. Aunt Em fares a bit better, only missing from the 1933 version. Toto accompanies Dorothy in all but 1925, but in the Muppet version he is not a dog, but a prawn who gets turned into Pepe the King Prawn when they land in Oz. The Witch of the North shows up in some form in all versions but 1925 and 1933. She is combined with the Glinda character in 1910, 39, and 64. The 3 Munchkin men, who approach Dorothy with the Witch of the North after the house lands in Oz, only appear in the 1982 version. Poor Boq, a rich Munchkin man with whom Dorothy stays the night on the way to the Scarecrow, doesn't show up in any version. The Scarecrow and Tin Man show up in every version, with farmhands disguising themselves as such in 1925. The lion appears in every version but 1933. In 1910, Toto is turned into a lion to be a great protector, and in 1925, one of the farmhands puts on a lion costume, like the others for a disguise. The Kallidas, or Kallidas, depending on which version you watch, tiger-headed bear creatures, only appear in 1982 and 1986, as described in the book. In the Muppet version, they are Statler and Waldorf. The stork, who saves the Scarecrow from being stuck in the middle of a river, only appears in 1986. The Queen of the Field Mice and her people, who save the companions from the poppy field, do not appear in any version, nor does the family living just outside the Emerald City, where the companions stop for dinner and find out about Oz appearing as different beings. The Emerald City Guard appears in every version but 1964, though there is not a specific guard character in the 1925 version. There are multiple guards and soldiers in Emerald City in this version, so it gets a partial point for both these characters. The Emerald City Palace soldier guarding access to the wizard appears in every version but 64, 82, and 86, though is combined with the Emerald City Guards in both 1910 and 1925. The Emerald City Palace girl, who comes to show the companions to their rooms for their stay while waiting for the wizard, only appears in 1982 and 1986, though in 86 she's an older woman, so partial point for that appearance. The wizard is supposed to appear to each of the companions as a different being. Dorothy's Oz, an enormous bald head with a voice not so awful as Dorothy imagined, appears as a giant head in all versions from 1939 through 2005. Though it is to all four companions that he appears in this form in 39, 78, and 86, and appears only to Dorothy as such in 1982 and 2005. In 1964 he is just a voice that is not so awful, so partial point. The Scarecrow's Oz is a lovely lady in green gauze, appearing correctly to the Scarecrow in 1982, but in this form to the Tin Man in 2005, where she morphs into a giant chicken to tempt Tin Man Gonzo. The Tin Man's Oz, a terrible elephant-sized beast with the head of a rhino with 5 eyes, 5 arms, 5 legs, and thick woolly hair, also appears properly in 1982, but in the Muppet version it seems to appear to the lion as a giant dragon rather than a beast, so partial point. The Lion's Oz, a ball of fire with a low voice, appears in 1982, but only partially to the Scarecrow in 2005 as a burning head. The Witch of the West appears in all versions but 1925 and 1933, and only in 1982 does she have just one eye. The 2005 Muppet version has both eyes, one of which is a magic eye that acts as a telescope, the only version in which this occurs. The witch uses a silver whistle to send, in successive waves, minions to attack the companions on their approach to her castle, in the forms of wolves, bees, crows, and winkies. There is no version in which all 4 of these appear. In 1910, the companions are attacked by people who accompany the Witch of the West, who I take to be the Winkies, but by no other minions. In 1939, the witch says she sent along an insect ahead of the flying monkeys to take the fight out of the companions, a scene that ended up being cut from the film, so no point there, but Winkies do show up at her castle, just not to attack the companions, so partial point. The witch mentions throwing Toto to the wolves in 1964, so partial point. In 1978, there are crow-like beings around the witch at her castle, but they don't attack, so partial point. Wolves and crows get sent in 1982, but not bees or winkies. In 1986, there is one Winky they meet who has not been enslaved to the witch, but he's not a minion, so partial point. In 2005, the witch mentions her silver whistle, wolves, bees, and crows, but we don't see them and there are no Winkies, so partial point. The Flying Monkeys appear in 39, 78, 82, 86, and 05, and are a motorcycle gang in both 1978 and 2005. The real Oz shows up in each version with varying appearance, but the people made of china, the Hammerheads, the Quadlings, and the Great Spider are omitted from all versions. Glinda, the Good Witch of the South, appears in some form in all but 1925 and 1933. In 1910, 39, and 64, she's combined with the Witch of the North. In 1978, she just shows up without explanation that she's Glinda or from the South. In 1982, she just appears in Emerald City after the wizard leaves. In 1986, she's actually in the South as Glinda, but doesn't have red hair. And in 2005, she is from the South, but visiting her sister the Witch of the North, and again without red hair. After all character points, the 1982 version leads with 21.5 points, with the 1933 version in last place with 6 points. Elements. For a story that starts and ends in Kansas, the state appears or is mentioned in only 6 versions. 25, though there are no mountains in Kansas even though we see them in the background. 39, 64, 82, 86, and 05. There is a cyclone or storm shelter at least mentioned in 6 versions, 33, 39, 64, 82, 86, and 05. It is outside the farmhouse in 1939, only mentioned in the 1964 version, and is a community storm shelter in the trailer park in 2005. The 1982 and 1986 versions get a bonus point for the trapdoor for the cellar being in the middle of the house floor. Dorothy is asleep in the cyclone in only 3 versions, 39, 82, and 86, yet only in the 1986 version does she go to sleep on her own rather than being knocked out. The Witch of the East's shoes show under the fallen house in all versions from 1939 to 2005, though only 2 versions, 1978 and 2005, have actual silver shoes. Munchkins are present in 39, 78, 82, 86, and 05, while only 1982 mentions that the Land of Oz is separated from the rest of the world, and by a desert for the bonus point. The witch's feet disappear, leaving the shoes behind, in 39, 78, 82, 86, and 05, though in 2005 we don't see them disappear, as the Witch of the North just pulls them off and hands them to Dorothy, so partial point there. The Yellow Brick Road shows in all versions from 1939 to 2005. Munchkinland appears to be at least partially blue in each version from 1939 to 2005, except for 1964, though in 1978 it's an urban landscape lit blue for a partial point. The actual land is not blue in 1982, but the houses are blue for a partial point, and in 2005 it's all sort of blue for a partial point. The Scarecrow is mentioned as being only afraid of a lighted match in only the 1939 version. Scarecrow tells at least part of his origin story in only two versions, 1982 and 1986. The Tin Man tells his origin story partially in 1986 and 2005, and the Lion in 1982 and 1986. The Tin Man displays his compassion in getting upset when he steps on a bug only in 1982. The Emerald City countryside is depicted as at least partially green in 5 versions, 39, 78, 82, 86, and 05. And Emerald City itself has a wall, not just the outside of a building, in 25, 82, 86, and 05. There is not an Emerald City family the companions visit in any version, so there is no description of Oz appearing in different forms. The Emerald City Guard is Munchkin-sized in only one version, 1982, and only the Muppet version has anyone wearing spectacles in Emerald City. Emerald City is green in 39, 64, 78, and 05, though only depicted as supposed to be dazzlingly green in 2005, hence the spectacles. Oz only meets with the companions separately in 1986 and 2005, though not on different days. In the book, there is no road west to Winky Country because no one goes there. While this is not mentioned in any version, 1939 and 1986 show an actual non-road path they are on. Other versions either don't show what the companions are walking on, or there is a road. The powers of the Golden Cap are not fully explained in any version. In 1939, the witch picks up a cap and then calls on the monkeys, but never wears it, so partial point. In 1986 and 2005, it's just generically explained the monkeys are controlled by the cap. The Witch of the West is supposed to not bleed when bitten by Toto, since she's dried up long ago. In 1982, Toto bites the witch and we do not see any blood, but this may be due to it being a children's movie, so partial point. Dorothy does not wash or sweep away what's left of the melted witch in any version. The Winkies rejoice at the witch's demise in only 39, 78, and 82. Dorothy puts on the golden cap only in 1910 and 1982, though she is given the magical biker's cap in 2005, but then turns it over to the monkeys. No version includes the story of the Monkey King and how his people became enslaved to the cap. Oz is not threatened with use of the monkeys by the Scarecrow in any version, but is revealed as his true self from behind some sort of hiding place in 39, 64, 82, 86, and 05. In 1939, he's behind a curtain rather than a screen. In 1964, he's behind the throne. In 1982, Toto steps on a button that raises the throne to reveal the wizard underneath. In 1986, he is behind an actual screen, but the lion doesn't roar to frighten Toto into knocking over the screen. And in 2005, Oz is again inside the throne. Oz tells his story in 39, 78, 82, 86, and 05. Emerald City turns out to be not all that green in 1933 and 2005, but in 1933 it's just not all that green and has nothing to do with the spectacles. The Scarecrow actually gets something physical for his brain, rather than being told he's had what he needs all along, in 39, 64, 86, and 05. It's supposed to be a head full of bran and needles, which happens in 1964 and 1986. In 1939, the brain is a diploma, and in 2005, the brains are just bran cereal, so partial point. The Tin Man's heart is supposed to be a sawdust-filled silk heart. He gets a physical heart in the same versions as the brain for the Scarecrow. In 1939, it's a clockwork heart. In 1964, it's a sparkly heart of unknown material. In 1986, it appears to be a painted wooden heart, but at least the wizard snips open the Tin Man's chest to give it to him. In 2005, the heart is a large candy heart with Be Mine on it, but it's also put inside the Tin Man's chest. For the lion, the courage from the wizard is a drink in the book. The lion also gets something physical in 39, 64, 86, and 05. It is correctly a drink in 1964 and 1986. In 1939, it's a testimonial, or a medal pinned to his chest. And in 2005, it's a golden microphone, for Fozzie, who is the lion, to have courage to tell his jokes. Dorothy's wish is, of course, to go home, except in 2005, where she's wanted to be a singer. She gets her wish there, but soon realizes it's not really what she wanted, and wants to go home. We only learn the flying monkeys cannot return Dorothy to Kansas in 1982. No version goes south through Quadling Country, so it's not read in any version. The trio tell Glinda where they would like to go and what they'd like to do after Dorothy leaves, only in 1986, though here it is not exactly as it is in the book. Glinda makes Scarecrow ruler of Oz in her capacity as Protector of Oz, not the Wizard. Wants the Tin Man to go to the Winkies as their ruler, rather than the Winkies having previously asked him to do so, and says the lion has been restored to his place as King of the Beasts due to his courage, rather than him taking that back by killing the Great Spider. Dorothy is told of the power the shoes contain in all versions from 1939 to 2005, but there is only a new farmhouse either already there or being built in 1982 and 1986. After all element points, 1982 still leads and 1933 still trails, but others have changed places, notably 1939 overtaking 1978 and 1986 moving into second place. Plot points. The cyclone that carries Dorothy and others to Oz hits in every version, though in 1978 it's a snow cyclone. Dorothy lands in Munchkinland in Oz in every version except 1933, though in varying ways and locations. In 1910, she and others are carried off in a haystack. In 1925, it's a barn. In 1939, the house lands in the middle of a Munchkin city, not in the countryside. In 1964, Dorothy is carried off on a cellar door. In 1978, she's carried off with Toto without a house or door or anything else. And in 2005, the double-wide trailer lands in a Munchkin city rather than the countryside. When Dorothy exits her house, she's approached in the book by a group of 3 Munchkin men and the Witch of the North. In 1939 and 1964, it is just the Witch of the North. In 1978, a few Munchkins approach but without the Witch. 1982 gets it right with 3 men and the Witch, while 1986 and 2005 have a bunch of Munchkins at first, with the Witch showing up a bit later. Dorothy is told she's killed the Witch of the East in every version from 1939 to 2005. In the book, the Witch of the North consults her hat, which turns into a slate with writing on it, to see what Dorothy should do about going back to Kansas. This happens as depicted only in 1982, though the witch doesn't balance the hat on her nose prior to it turning into a slate. In 1978, she has a tablet around her neck, but she doesn't consult it. In 39, 64, 86, and 05, the witch just says she should go to Emerald City to consult the wizard. Dorothy follows the yellow brick road in all versions from 1939 to 2005. She heads to what is supposed to be Emerald City in 1910 and 1933, just not on the yellow brick road. Dorothy meets the Scarecrow in every version but 1925, where one of the farmhands swept up in the cyclone disguises himself as a scarecrow in Oz, but never sees Dorothy as such. In 1910, Dorothy meets the Scarecrow before the cyclone ever hits, so partial point. Dorothy meets the Tin Man in every version but 1925 as well, but the lion meeting is missing in 1910 and 1933, unless you count Toto being turned into a lion or a real protector in 1910, which I do not. Dorothy never meets the 1925 lion. The lion jumps a great ditch with them on his back, individually, in only 1982, while the Kalidas attack in one way or another in 82, 86, and 05. In 1986, the lion is truly cowardly and doesn't even try to roar at the Kalidas to distract them, while the Tin Man chops down a tree. And in 2005, the Kalidas just attack the lion emotionally by heckling him. There is a river crossing of some sort in 33, 82, and 86, though in 1933 they just go over a bridge to cross the river, and in 1982 the Scarecrow does not get stuck on a pole to be saved by the stork. In 1986 the river crossing is as depicted in the book. The poppy field shows up in some form in 39, 78, 86, and 05. In both 1978 and 2005 it takes the form of a nightclub of some sort. The Emerald City family is not in any of these versions, so there's no staying the night with them. Oz meets the companions in various ways from 1939 to 2005, though none of them is quite like the book, so partial points for this plot point. He's supposed to meet with them all on different days, appearing in different forms, while telling them they need to kill the Witch of the West to be granted their wishes. In 39, 64, and 78, he meets all of them at the same time on the same day, while in 82, 86, and 05, he meets them at different times on the same day. The Witch of the West sees the companions approaching in each version from 1939 to 2005, except for 1978, though only in 2005 does she see them using her magic eye like a telescope. In 39, 64, and 82 she sees them in a crystal ball. In 1986 she sees them in a magic mirror. She doesn't see them approach in 1978, but seems to know they're en route as she sends the monkeys after them, so no point. The witch sends minions, wolves, crows, bees, winkies, to attack the companions only in 1910 and 1982, but not with all 4. In 1910, the witch goes herself to attack the group with a bunch of people assumed to be the Winkies, but no other minions. In 1982, she sends wolves and crows, but not the others. She sends the flying monkeys after the companions in 39, 78, 82, 86, and 05, joining them in 2005. She enslaves Dorothy only in 1910 and 1986, and only starves the Lion for his refusal to pull her coach in 1986. Dorothy melts the witch in one way or another in every version but 1925 and 1933. In 1910, she just randomly throws water on the witch. In 1939, Dorothy throws water on her in order to extinguish the scarecrow. In 1964, Dorothy finally remembers the witch is afraid of water and acts accordingly. In 1978, Dorothy pulls a fire alarm. In 1982, she tumbles a large pot of water down the stairs to the witch who is chasing her, while in 2005, Dorothy kung fu kicks the witch back into a waiting bath. Only in 1986 is the scene close to the book, with the witch attempting to trip Dorothy with an invisible bar to get the shoes to come off. Dorothy doesn't fall for it though, and later throws water on the witch after the witch turns the Lion to stone and threatens Toto. The companions don't get lost on their way back to the Emerald City in any version, but do use the monkeys to get them there in 1978 and 2005, so partial points. Oz does not refuse to see them until he's threatened by the Scarecrow with the flying monkeys in any version, but does meet with them to provide their wishes in every version but 1910, 25, and 33. The brain, heart, and courage are doled out in some physical form in 39, 64, 86, and 05. Scarecrow is made ruler of Oz in 1910, 39, 82, and 86. No version has the Emerald City soldiers suggesting they go south to Glinda, and the party goes south in only one version, 1986, but they are taken to Glinda by the monkeys rather than making most of the journey themselves. The Lion does not encounter or kill the Great Spider in any version. There is a meeting with Glinda in each version from 1939 to 2005, though in varying places and times. Most versions have Glinda showing up in the Emerald City after the wizard leaves, but 1986 is the only version in which they meet her in her palace in the south. Dorothy goes home via the magic shoes in all versions from 1939 to 2005, though in 1939 it's all been a dream, and only in 1986 does it appear that at least one shoe falls off over the desert on the way back. After all plot points, the 1982 version still leads with 63.75 points, and the 1933 version still brings up the rear with only 10.5 points. Bonus points. 3 versions received extra bonus points for their other details. The 1910 and 1986 versions get a bonus point for their title being The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the actual title of the book, rather than just The Wizard of Oz or other variant. 1910 also gets a bonus point for naming the Witch of the West Mamba, which is similar to Mombi, the Wicked Witch of the North who was defeated by the Good Witch of the North in one of the sequels. The 2005 version got 2 bonus points, one for beginning with a book opening to show the story, and the other for the Witch of the North's name being Tadipoo, a name also pulled from one of the sequels. After bonus points are figured in, the 1982 version edges out the 1986 version as the most faithful version, even with 86's bonus point, with 63.75 points to 63.66 points. Even though each of these versions earned over 50% of possible points, they were still both under 54%, and the next closest version percentage-wise was the Muppet version, with only about 45% of possible points. We still do not have a version that includes Boq, the Emerald City family and their description of Oz, the actual field mice, in the Muppets the field mice were the Munchkins, played by rats, the China people, the Hammerheads, the Lion killing the spider, the Quadlings and their country, the Witch of the West not bleeding because she dried up a long time ago, Dorothy washing or sweeping away what's left of the witch, the Monkey King's story, or the Scarecrow threatening Oz with the flying monkeys. Is there a version I missed you think is more faithful than any of these? Comment below and I'll check it out. Are there other book-to-film adaptations that should be scored for accuracy? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.